Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session, Operators Got Talent. Some of you may have been to this session last year. This is the second year we've run this session, so some of you may be familiar with the format. Just to introduce who I am first, my name is Tom Page. I'm the Global Head of Hotels and Leisure at law firm CMS. With me today, I've got 4 operators who I'll introduce in a moment, and 3 fellow judges. The session today is effectively an opportunity to see a mini operator selection process. Each of the operators will have an opportunity in turn to present a proposal for a hypothetical development scenario that we gave them in advance. This was not a named European city, but it was a hypothetical European city. We gave them data on occupancy, ADR rates, segment mix for this city, some of the brief of the location within the city in which they would be located, this project. And we gave them effectively free rein to come up with a proposal for one of the brands, where they've got multiple brands of their choice, to present an operating model and convince a panel of judges that they would be the best operator to operate this hotel development. With me on the judging panel today, I've got Ben Godden, who's the Chief Executive Officer for Vision Hospitality Asset Management. They are a firm that does a large amount of asset management across the hotel industry in Europe. I have Eric Jacobs, who is taking over today from Mark Socker. Eric Jacobs is the Director of Transactions for Invesco Real Estate, an experienced investor in the market across Europe, both UK, Germany, and other countries within Western Europe in particular. And then lastly, I have Rob Stapleton, who's a Director of Hotels at Savills on the agency side, an experienced consultant in the hotel industry. The operators we have today, we have a mix of operators. Going in the order they'll be appearing, we have Valerie Shermans, who will be up first, and she is the Director of Business Development for Carlson Residor Hotel Group. And she'll be putting forward a proposal for Radisson Blu project. We have, next up will be Wilhelmine Giels from IHG, the Associate Vice President of Development for North and Eastern Europe. And she'll be presenting for a dual-branded Staybridge and Holiday Inn project. We then have Eric van Dijk, from the Chief Operating Officer from Meininger Hotels, who'll be presenting a project for a Meininger hotel. And last of all, we have Guy Ivesha, who's the Vice President Business Development for PPHE Hotel Group, and he'll be proposing an art hotel. The format of the session is that each presenter will be given 5 minutes to pitch and give a presentation. They have a limit of 3 slides each they're allowed to use, and then we, the judges, will quiz them for 5 minutes on their proposals. We're going to allow each of them to pitch first before we open up the questions to the floor. So you will have about 15 minutes opportunity to raise questions from the floor and quiz any of the operators, but we feel it's fair in terms of timing to give each operator their chance to present and have a fixed time period before we open it up to the floor. So as these presentations have been given, do think about what questions you want to ask. When we get to the end of the 4th presentation, there'll be roving mics available, so you can raise your questions. You can either direct questions at particular operators, just give general observations, give your views on which you think is the best project, or even just raise general discussions for the operators all to comment on. So do feel free to pipe up. And then at the end of the session, we'll just have a roundup, and the judges will give their views on which pitch proposal they have found the most compelling. So with that, I'm going to go straight now into allowing the first of the operators, to Valerie, to present the Radisson Blu project. Thank you very much, Valerie.
I'll stand up. Maybe that's easier. Hi, Tom. Thank you for having me. we wanted to pursue this hotel development opportunity under the Radisson Blu brand, which is the largest upper upscale brand in Europe, and hence also present in a variety of places. In that respect, Germany is a very good example. We have the modern Radisson Blu in Berlin with the fish tank feature in the lobby, which I'm sure you all remember from last year's opening party. And at the same time, we also operate the oldest hotel in Germany under the Radisson Blu flag in Wiesbaden. So if you look at the, let's say, existing portfolio, you can clearly see that we have products which are able to adapt to market trends and to market demand. And we have embraced new hotel developments, boutique hotels, but at the same time also a redevelopment of classical buildings. And although we are present in, well present in Western Europe, we do commit our development strategy to filling in those gaps on the maps and plant our Radisson Blu flag across all primary and secondary cities in Western Europe. Now, if we look into the case that Tom presented to us, we have 7,500 square meters to fill, which for Radisson Blu represents a hotel of 135 guest rooms. Overall, addressing 55 square meters of GIA per room, which is quite efficient when you look into the upper upscale segment. Further efficiency, I believe, would hamper operational effectiveness, but also the ability to adapt the product in a later stage to changing market trends. Part of the exercise was also to elaborate on parking requirements. And although we do prefer dedicated parking to our hotels, the combination of good connection to the public transport and a well laid out front drive, we believe that we can facilitate and provide the overall Radisson Blu experience. All in all, that comes down to a total estimated build cost of 21 million euro, representing 160,000 euro per room, which again is quite efficient within the upper upscale segment. And within that segment, I would be really cautious for any development cost which is lower than this 160,000 threshold, because you want to build to last. In order to facilitate the development process, we suggest to proceed with our ready available room styles. These room styles have been completely value engineered, or we are able to adapt them to the market through artwork, color schemes, and we have implemented those across 5,000 units in our lease portfolio, paid for it ourselves, and been able to negotiate high discount structures, which are also available to you. But now let's look into the interesting part, the commercial structure. We are in it for a long time. We want to pursue long-lasting business relationships. But we do understand your focus on bottom line. And that's why we propose to you, during the first 8 years, an HUP guarantee. And that will facilitate your credit negotiations during the development period, but will also open up your pool of investors after the opening date. And if you then look, although we do commit to that guarantee, we like to have a share from the upside. So when times go well, we like to participate. And I'm sure that in a win-win situation, you're happy to share that with us. And I will not elaborate on the other fee structures because they're quite, market practice. I see all the smartphones popping up. That's good. You can call me later. But at the same time, we also understand that, that owners and banks prefer to have more control over their assets. And that's why we want to talk to you about flexibility and creativity. We cannot avoid risking losing our presence. This is something that we can just not pursue, because our presence, our brand equity, is a big component of our company's value. But we do see that in order to pursue a keener yield, in order to open up your pool of investors on the day that you decide to sell, we are willing to convert that management agreement into a franchise. And the same flexibility applies to underperformance. We believe that we have we have certain excellence, operational excellence, expertise, and that we can deliver the promises that we set forth. However,
So you can just have 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. So we do believe that we can achieve what we have promised to you, but at the same time, we do reckon if we cannot deliver those results, we give you the option to take over the operations. So when it all comes down to, if we combine all those elements, we see that we have the ability to achieve an AGOP of almost 2 million. We guarantee you 1.4, and I'm sure that that will provide sufficient comfort to your banker. And at the same time, we offer you the flexibility to convert the management agreement to a franchise agreement, which allowed us, according to the data that we got, to pursue a keener yield, achieving a market value of 32 million euro, which accounts approximately, which provides you approximately a return on investment of 25%, depending on how you have to allocate the land cost to the total development cost.
Thank you, close off now. Great. Thank you very much. So, judges, do you have any questions for Valerie? Comments, observations?
I have one question. It looks very interesting and very compelling. The one question I have is, you talk about efficiency, and it's a relatively small building that can be built, and you're building a 135-room full-service hotel.
Yeah.
Is that the most efficient structure in your brand portfolio, or would you not maybe do something that gives you a slightly more rooms so you can offset some of the fixed costs a bit more and create a larger room count?
Then we would have the option to look into, for example, Park-In, but the strategy there is to pursue development by penetrating the market through Radisson Blu, and then following through Park-In by Radisson, taking into account that it's a gateway city in Western Europe, and where we are not yet present. I believe that with the Radisson Blu overall awareness and the feeder market and the strong feeder markets across Europe, we felt the most comfortable with Radisson Blu. Yeah.
Valerie, from my perspective, your GOP, you're offering a GOP conversion of about 42%?
Yes.
Okay. On an ADR of 145-ish.
And stabilized here, correct.
Yeah. How much is coming from food and beverage, ballpark? Is this 80% rooms, 20% F&B?
Approximately, yes. Yeah, that's
Okay.
how because we did not assume a lot of meeting facilities, so M&E income would be limited. And if you talk about the 42% conversion from total revenue to GOP, we benchmarked that across our portfolio. But I have to make a caveat. France, which is high social costs, would probably be a different story.
Okay.
But this would be an overall average.
I like the option to potentially go into a franchise conversion, but would you offer that to us earlier than 4 years?
No, because we do feel that it is important to get our operational systems up and running, first of all, and that you will benefit as a franchisee most of that stabilization period, because then it's fully tapped into the system and you will get more out of it. And we want to make sure that if it's a Western European city where we are not present, that the pre-opening and the opening phase is very important, because we all know that as soon as you mess up the opening phase or the first few months after the opening, it could affect the hotel for another 5 to 10 years.
Thank you.
And a question from me, the AGOP guarantee is a flat sum across the entire 8 years, is that, or is that
No,
indexed
we said that we would imply a ramp up, and we would stabilize it at 1.4.
Okay, and what does that mean? Because obviously your projected AGOP is 1.9 million, which is obviously well over the guarantee threshold limited, and that's therefore the level at which we're paying a 15% super incentive fee. So what does that mean that effectively your averaged incentive fee is if you're achieving that target level of 1.9 million?
Well, I'm in the business to help you secure credit and to help you open up your pool of investors, but I'm not in the business to secure your upside. So overall, I mean, this is what we believe we can achieve. We want to do that in a mutual win-win situation, but it has to be a healthy mix of give and take, and for us it is important that we have kind of a balance that we can work with.
I like the risk mitigation. I like the fact that the downside risk is mitigated.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a trade-off with that in terms of upside performance.
Yeah.
I disagree with your statement. I think you are in the business to overperform for your owners, and that's
No, but
why
that's
we
for
would
sure. But I
employ
mean,
you.
I cannot guarantee. I mean, that's not
No, of
something
course.
that I guarantee. And also linked to the guaranteed result, you have the option to convert to a franchise.
Yeah.
So it's a way of balancing out the overall story of the commercial
The
proposal.
guarantee is great in terms of getting
Yeah.
funding and getting the development out of the ground. I
Yeah.
completely concur with that. Just going back to Tom's earlier question, the AGOP guarantee, once that's stabilised, is that indexed?
Yes,
Is it-
that
is it
would be
just a flat
indexed.
1.4?
Yeah, no, that would be indexed.
Okay. I suppose then the only other thing I'd like to point at then is the flip to franchise is great. I love the flexibility. It opens up a much bigger pool of buyers that I can sell the product into. Why are you clawing back your shortfall? If you've underperformed, why are you clawing back that shortfall when we're going to still give you a balance sheet accretion by giving you a franchise agreement?
If we would enter in such discussions, this is something that we need to elaborate on. It needs to be a balanced discussion, because overall, if I would pursue the management agreement, I would have the option to somehow recoup the shortfalls.
Mm-hmm.
So it's maybe applying the same creativity what we have in the proposal on the shortfall repayment.
Okay. And just one last question then. Your exit cap rate, is that assumed selling as a management contract or as a franchise?
Well, since you have the flexibility to sell it as a franchise contract, I assume to have the cap rate at a franchise contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, Wilhelmine.
Thanks. So before starting, I would just like to point out that I assumed the case to be pitching to a developer. So you're a developer. Ready to go?
Yes.
So, gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank you for giving us IHG the opportunity to present on this particular project. The site is a very attractive location in the city center of The Hague in Holland. Because of the international character of the city and large expatriate community, there's a strong demand for extended stay and there's limited supply. So we recommend to develop a dual-branded property featuring a Staybridge Suites, which is our upscale extended stay brand, and a Holiday Inn. Both brands are not yet present in the city, so the project will benefit from high pent-up demand in the IHG system. Within the available space of 7,500 meters, we can do 90 rooms Staybridge Suites and 90 rooms Holiday Inn. In Staybridge Suites, there will be a mix of studios and one-bedroom apartments, average size being around 30 square meters per unit. We allow 300 square meters for public areas, the rest being back of house, circulation and admin areas. So that would bring you to a total of 3,700 square meters on the Staybridge. Holiday Inn, I'm sure you know. It's our mid-scale full-service brand, very complementary to Staybridge. We have a certain number of examples where you successfully have a Holiday Inn together with a Staybridge, like in London Stratford, for instance. Standard rooms are 24 square meters in size. Executive rooms will be 27. Public areas cover around 500 square meters, so that will give you another 3,700. We'll introduce the open lobby here. Open lobby has been successfully developed recently in a certain number of projects, generating more F&B revenue and more F&B profit. The fact that we develop the two brands together will actually generate efficiency, both in terms of construction and in terms of operation. The dual branding will also allow us to capture different client segments throughout the year, smoothen the cash flow, and thus reduce the risk for you as an owner. Finally, the extended stay component will give you some flexibility if for some reason in the future you would like to convert to residential because the units are large. In terms of cost, we estimated 24 million euro investment, including land, fees, FF&E, and a prudent contingency of 5%. So that is 130,000 a key, or 90,000 a key, excluding the land. I'll speak about the operational projections in a minute, but let me first explain you the model we want to offer you for this development. We understand that you need a secure income stream to facilitate your midterm exit. Therefore, we propose to offer a global solution with one of our partners, whereby IHG will sign a franchise agreement and the partner will enter into a lease. So you will benefit from two strong brands, the IHG system, and will bring an experienced, financially solid operator to you who will enter into the lease. The lease will have a fixed component equivalent to about 18% of turnover, but it will be a fixed amount indexed over time. In addition, there will be a top-up of 25% of the revenue as a variable component. And as a cherry on the cake, there's 30% profit share of net available cash flow after lease. This ensures maximum alignment of interest for all parties, protects your downside, and maximizes your upside potential. IHG is furthermore willing to bring some guarantees to support the operator. Should things go wrong for some reason, we hope not, and the lessee defaults, then IHG will offer you a management agreement or a franchise agreement that's flexible for you to discuss at that time. So going to the next slide, looking at the financials. I want to point out that this property will achieve above average GOP margins, mainly due to the extended stay component. We assume that the Holiday Inn will perform at par with market, so 82% occupancy, around €100 ADR in stabilized year. For Staybridge Suites, it will achieve much higher occupancy and about €30 rate premium over the Holiday Inn. On the GOP for Holiday Inn, we project around 42%, and the Staybridge should achieve over 60%. So with the lease structure that I just explained to you and 24 million investment, that would bring you a fixed income yield of around 7% cash on cash every year and a total yield of 12%. Now, given current market circumstances, we think that the exit yield for this project based on the lease would be around 5.75%. So overall, in the long-term perspective, this project will yield you an IRR of 13.3, and that is before financing. And if we look at the shorter hold-term period of 4 years, it's even 20%. So as a conclusion, a dual-branded hotel with higher operating margins, cost savings on construction, a creative lease structure with fixed and variable components to support it, and strong brands will make this a very sound investment decision, I think. At least on the timing.
Thank you very much, Wilhelmine. Judges, any questions?
I think you've done a great job. I love the dual branding construct, and I like the fact, again, you've mitigated some downside, but given us some upside as well if you do a great job. The tripartite relationship's an interesting construct to bring to the table, but with the profit share after the guaranteed rent of 18%, you've effectively got another 7% of total revenue as a rent on top of that.
Yes.
And then your profit sharing as well. Is there enough in it for the tenant?
Well, yes, I think, because if we look at the financials, we still stick to the main ratio where the total rent should not be more than, it's actually around 30% of total revenue, should not be more than 60% of GP. In this case, it's around 55% of GP. So I think there's still enough in for the tenant to make a decent living and to have a sustainable cash flow for the tenant as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the tenant, because it's 90 rooms for both the extended stay and the hotel side. How easy is it for a single tenant to operate both?
Well, it's very easy because actually you have synergies. I mentioned it in terms of construction and in operation. You have one back of house area, so everything which is back of house, whether it's technical or let's say functional, can be shared, which is also one of the things which is interesting for this project. Actually, from a client perspective, there's a big advantage because the Staybridge Suites clients, where there's no F&B offered, can use the Holiday Inn F&B. And from the tenant perspective, it's really easy to operate because you have one GM, you'll have one sales and marketing team.
And I appreciate that. And from your experience, a hotel operator is typically very similar-minded than an extended stay operator?
Well, we actually have partners we work with. We were very good at the extended stay and the hotel operation. And we have done projects with them in the past, like the ones I mentioned. There's other ones ongoing. We're looking at different opportunities in Southern Europe as well, Madrid, Barcelona.
And they're willing to underwrite because the numbers you show almost seem a little bit too good to be true.
Too good to be true.
Eric's not comfortable with unlevered IRRs being so high.
An unlevered IRR of 13%, unfortunately, I haven't really come across much recently. So yeah, no, it looks very good. I'm just wondering, in order to get the lease to kind of dictate the exit yield that you have assumed, it needs to be a pretty watertight lease that the operator is willing to provide.
Well, the operator can provide pretty strong covenants, and in addition to that, to support that, we as IHG will also consider certain forms of guarantee to additionally support the lease. Actually.
And would you be willing to, as an extra protection, step in if the tenant was to default, that rather than stepping in as a manager or franchisor, that you actually take over the lease?
I don't think so, but we could consider management with certain guarantees.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, what was the build time, approximate build time on this?
It's average. It's I assume 2 years build time on this, so it's not faster than average.
Okay, so it's typical of
yes.
all hotel concept as opposed to a dual
yes.
Approach.
Yeah, there's no additional build time due to the dual branding.
And the cost per key you said was about 130
yes.
euros per key.
Yes.
Is that today's prices? Is that a proven cost?
That's actually partly, yes. It's proven it has been value engineered for the Holiday Inn much more than the Staybridge Suites, I must say, because that brand is much more developed in Europe. So we're pretty sure Staybridge is still a younger brand in Europe, but we have a certain number of examples, and we're working on that to value engineer Staybridge Suites, and we're pretty sure we can achieve that.
Do you have a cost per key on the Staybridge alone?
Yes, we do.
Which is
similar, actually. It's very similar to the Holiday Inn. Both are around 130,000 per key.
Okay. And then my final question really about the product is, in the core brand Holiday Inn, you're only offering a meeting room, pretty small one.
Yeah, just a small one, because in this market, and given this small size, what we had available, we went for rather rooms, more revenue generating rather than meeting facilities. So it's just one small meeting room of 35 square meters.
Okay.
And in terms of the support that you say you would offer, you mentioned sort of supporting the operator sort of guarantee. What exactly are you offering there?
We discuss different forms of guarantee, but it could come in the form of key money, or it could come in the form of a guarantee.
To be cap guarantee
to be discussed.
In case of the non-payment of rental. Okay.
Sorry, can I ask one more question? I don't per se disagree with your exit yield, but one of the things that funds are going to look at is the rent coverage. Is your tenant going to give us visibility on the profit and loss account so we can see what the rent coverage ratio is? Because that's going to be key to getting that sort of
Sorry,
yield.
say that again. I'm not sure I understand your question.
The key to achieving that sort of yield on a variable rent is going to depend on the level of rent
coverage is the rent is 30% of revenue and about 55%.
It is on your forecasts, but in 5 years' time, when we want to sell, is your tenant going to give us that visibility so that we know we've got 2 times?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wilhelmine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And now, if I can ask Eric to take the floor and present his mining hotel.
We're going to go with the legal.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom.
That's too hard to describe.
I'm representing Mining Hotels. Mining Hotels is a flexible cover, the hybrid hotel business. For many of you might not have heard about it before. I'd like to display first a little bit about our target market of the kind of product that we want to place. The target market has 1/3 school groups and backpackers. Then individual tourism, families, couples, and corporate. In the individual tourism, there is also a bit of backpacker. So you see the hybrid hotel business from hostel, school groups, and that element into the budget hotel sector. We've assumed a developer develops the property, and we're very much an operating company offering fixed leases. From the target markets that we're having displayed up here, you see the room types that we're looking for. 2+1 means 2 plus a twin-bedded room plus a sofa. 2+2 means twin-bedded room plus a bunk bed. 2+4 means a twin-bedded room plus 2 bunk beds. That gives us the flexibility of operating. Every single room could be used for all the different guest types. Gives us our layout 15.5 square meters for the 2+1 rooms, 15.5 for the 2+2, and the 26 square meters for the little larger rooms, mainly for school groups. In the 7,500 square meter property, we would get 210 rooms, 850 beds. And you see here also the square meters for the floor space. Very limited, so very efficient operating building. Fast construction, planning time 18, construction time 18 months. What do we require as a tenant? We want FF&E support. In total for this building, 935,000, plus our technical team gives you support, a manual, everything to construct the mining area, and we do that for a fee of 155,000. If I can ask Tom for the next slide. Comparative to the market, we actually outperform the market, and the interesting thing why we do that is because we're bed focused. And you saw some of the room types, or the bed types and the room types before. If we have a good bed efficiency, we get a very high room efficiency. So we can play with the different seasons every week. There's a different demand. I give a good example of Munich, Oktoberfest. We can sell a bed for 250 euros per person in a 4-bed room, and the week after in Expo Real we sell that room for 300 euros. It gives us a great flexibility of the product and the yielding that is taken advantage. That gives you the room occupancy of 92%, and this is actually happening in some of our current locations. 25 euros average bed rate, and therefore so 32 euros average bed rate and 134 room. Very quick stabilization. Again, because of the market that we operate in. School groups, having the relationship in this area makes it very strong. What do we offer? 20-year leases. 6-month rent-free period is something we request. Indexation from the second year. Bank guarantee of 6 months. Possibly with a higher level of guarantee. And we like the double net leases. So yeah, that brings us to the financials. Most of our business is in rooms, as you see here. 86% of our revenue is in rooms. Very limited F&B area. It's mainly breakfast, evening dinners for the school groups, pre-arranged. Therefore, it's very much focused on the accommodation. Low operating costs, budget model, very low. Everything is also centralized, so we have all the main services, nothing to do with the guest service, taken out of the hotel, and it's just the team that's local, focusing on hotel operation on the guest. In total, give me 59% GOP. What is the developer interested in? Is the fixed lease. Here, 19% of revenue. Therefore, with the covenant and the rent guarantee, indexation, I think a great model for any operator to take on as a lease, because as you see, we had from the brief, if we do a fixed rental, then there was a yield expectation of 5.25, so therefore the valuation gets to 35 million. So I think for any developer that would be a great proposition.
Thank you very much, Eric.
I like the flexibility and I like the fact that you can be a hotel for all occasions and for all people. I've got two problems though. One, we're building a product where if you don't work out, we've got a pretty limited pool of alternative occupiers. And that's the risk that we have to consider and take duly. But we're taking that risk, and it looks like you're making nearly twice as much money as we are.
Which gives you a great guarantee.
Rent coverage.
gives you a great...
It's a true point, but is that a fair reflection of the risk and reward?
Well, in the end, we need to take the market conditions. So we give you a really big guarantee of the rent. If you look out there, then those guarantees are not out there. And I think that's the upside that we give back. So very much for developers and owners who are interested in selling early, that could be a great investment. And that's one side of the thing that we can offer.
Okay.
To come back a bit to your risk, I think it's actually de-risked. We all remember 2008, 2009, the situation of all the hotels we were in. Well, this product actually isn't. It wasn't sensitive. It increased the average rate and the occupancy at that time, because we're at the lower end of the market. We have school groups. They do not stop traveling. They actually, educational travel is on the increase. So that's the good thing. Backpackers continue to travel. Backpackers decide just because of a school year when to travel. So that's also dictated. And the other area, the budget traveler. Well, most of the 4 and 5 star, they come down to the pricing, and then coming to a Meininger product with a great quality room, 3-star level of service, gives them a good option to go for.
Okay.
I hope that takes some of your risk away.
You mentioned that the guarantee is so strong. Can you elaborate a little bit on how the actual guarantee is working? Because from the presentation, it appears that's a 6-month bank guarantee, which, quite frankly, is not that strong. And of course, I appreciate there's a high rental coverage, which is based on forecasts. But what protection do I really have that this is going to perform? What guarantee is there? Is there just an SPV guarantee? Is there a corporate guarantee on top of that?
There is corporate guarantee on top. The Meininger Holding company is the corporate guarantee, who owns all the 16 Meininger hotels currently. So there is that corporate guarantee, and we have the holiday break.
And the corporate guarantee is guaranteeing the full lease and all liabilities that come along with it?
Yes.
So the 6-month bank guarantee is?
Relevant.
Is something nice, no?
Great.
I mean, we
No,
have
just
we have
want to make sure
what
it's
you
not
offer
just the 6 months bank guarantee, because then the guarantee isn't as strong as it sounds. But if there's a full corporate guarantee,
there is a corporate guarantee. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. And we have situations where some developers like to get a bit higher initial guarantee while they're constructing, just to ensure that opening happens. That's something we can consider as long as it comes back down to the 6 months.
Eric, a couple of questions on the performance, the operational performance of the asset, because you're offering here really an ADR. You're suggesting your ADR can get up to 134.
Yeah.
Which is higher than some of the full service propositions we're being offered here.
Yes.
And that's based on a price per person occupying the room. And you're saying you can get up to that within 3 years stabilized. Can you get up to a higher ADR than full service hotels?
Yes, we can. And the reason why we can is you saw a 15.5 square meter room. And so we have more rooms and we have 15.5 square meters. But 4 people stay in that room. Now, if I have 4 people paying just 30 euros, that's a very high via ADR that we can achieve. We also have the 6-bedded rooms. Then Meininger is also very active in the whole yielding process, taking advantage of all the events. So it's not just making sure you're fixed pricing, but it's taking all the opportunity that are out there, and giving our company the flexibility to react to it properly.
Okay. And with the model as it is, which is clearly very different to what we've been offered so far, can you not ramp up to this stabilized performance inside 3 years? We'd expect a full service hotel to get there within 3 years. Can you not get there within 2 years?
I like to overperform and under present. that would be my honest reaction to that. So yes, we have seen locations doing that, but before I commit to that, I'd rather perform.
Okay. And just a final question on food and beverage, again, with
Yes.
the performance of the hotel. The market that you offer to generally is low budget market, schools,
Yep.
etc. You're suggesting in F&B you can get an overall conversion of 40% in food and beverage profitability. Can you really do that from school groups who are eating a lot of breakfast muffins and for whom you're charging €3?
Well, actually, from each of the school group, we're getting €4 for the breakfast.
Okay.
Any other regular guests, we're €6.90, and then there's still the cost. But the food from the school groups is really pre-booked. So also our cost of purchasing it is, we have no kitchen. It's all pre-arranged.
Okay.
Convecto steam ovens, reheated, to keep the quality there.
Okay, and very quickly, because I think we're running out of time on this one. You've obviously proposed a fixed lease. Would you do variable lease to give the owners some of the benefit on the upside, as pick up on Rob's point again?
We have considered some variable elements, but I think most of the fixed lease gives owners a very strong idea about what they can sell. There is variable elements that we can think of, yes, depending on prime locations.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much, Eric. Thank you. So then if I can ask Guy to take the floor for the final presentation on Artotel. Thank you, Guy.
Hello, everyone. Tom, thanks for having me. We've received an hypothetical city, and we've decided that we need to choose a city in order to get an emotional attachment to the asset, because we don't like to think in theoretical terms. So the only other city that we're looking for presence for the Artotel brand, and we don't currently have presence with similar benchmarking information that we received, was Barcelona, which we really, really like. Artotel is part of PPHE Hotel Group. It's a brand that we wholly own. It's an upper upscale lifestyle brand. We used a recent opening in Amsterdam to relaunch and redefine the brand, which was very successful. We used a lot of the information that we could from Amsterdam, because also as a city, it performed in a very similar fashion to the benchmark we received from Tom. We've decided to use the information, the 7,500 square meters that we were given, and also incorporate a rooftop pool, because that doesn't form part of the gross area normally determined by the city. So we threw that in, and we have a rooftop pool. In terms of number of keys, we were able to achieve 130 keys for fairly large rooms. The net average room size is 28 square meters. We can be a bit flexible on that. But we decided to come into Barcelona with a bang and create a product which would be the leading upper upscale product in the city. We're also very passionate about restaurant and bars. We're one of the few hotel groups that can operate, execute, and create concepts for restaurant and bars, and we have proven that. So we have a substantial area for entertainment, club, lounge, library. We also decided to incorporate a spa and a gym into the scheme. And again, the rooftop, which we think would add a lot to the overall offering and our ability to perform better than most. We have done a feasibility study, and with the product that we think we can create, we think we'll be able to achieve by a stabilized year in future values an average rate of 231 euros. Again, Amsterdam played an important benchmark for us, because the city performed very similar to the city that we used here, and we were able to achieve during the first year of operation about 60% higher average rate than the market itself. And we even outperformed our budget for the first year of operation. So these numbers are not imaginary. We achieved them in similar cities. Again, the F&B will play a very important role in the revenue mix of the hotel. And the overall NOP is roughly below 33%. We can go maybe to the next slide. I'll try to explain why I think our hotel is an interesting alternative to most other lifestyle products. I mean, we don't have a cookie-cutter approach, so we will take Barcelona and really study the market carefully. We will look at the trends, we will look at what people want, both on the hotel product and the restaurant and bar offering. We customize the product to the needs of the people in Barcelona and the guests that we will welcome there. We are also developers. We're owners, developers, and operators, so we tend to achieve better profit margins than most other companies, and our build costs, when we execute the developments, are also lower. So we're a one-stop shop. We would do not just technical services. We could execute the development. We do our own construction, and we work for the long term. So the quality of the product will be superior to our peers. Also, we decided that this will be a management contract, and we would allow the sale of the property vacant possession after a relatively short period of time. I mean, this is obviously negotiable and it depends on the overall mix of the offer, but we would allow the sale of the property in vacant possession. Even though we've assumed that we will sell the property in vacant possession, we use the yields that you provided, but I'm sure we can apply a much sharper yield if a property in Barcelona sells unencumbered by management and brand. And we think that even though we give the new buyer an option to sell vacant possession, it will, the new investor would actually choose us given our track record. The lights are off.
Just finish up. 30 seconds.
Okay. We've also looked at what we think the land cost would be if we achieve these numbers. Would be able to buy land in Barcelona through. We did a residual land valuation for about 140,000 euros a key, and the overall valuation using the yields you provided would result in a valuation of 56 million for this asset, and the leveraged IRR would be 22%.
Who wants to kick off?
I love the confidence that you'll offer a property for sale free of management and brand. You're clearly very comfortable you're going to
It's
achieve.
because I know that the new buyer will still want me as operator.
I think that's got to be the case.
By choice, not by contract.
Yes, which should always be the case. I suppose from my point of view, when I'm selling that then, people like Eric always come to me with the difficult questions, and it's kind of like, well, you're knocking the ball out of the park. You're doing 60% RevPAR premium to the market. You walk away from the product. What do we do with it? Because your esteemed competitors are going to show a significant drop in RevPAR and therefore profit for us.
Well, the good thing about a market like Barcelona is that every single lifestyle operator and brand wants to be there. And most of the lifestyle operators and brand do purely management contracts, and they always show that they can do better than another operator, even if they can't. So they will make the numbers work, and if they don't, we will be more than happy to stay and continue to operate at these levels for the new investor.
Look, the structure is my dream. That's exactly what I want to see, that vacant possession sale, because that brings the biggest pool of buyers.
I like that as well, obviously, from an investor perspective, to have that flexibility. My concern that comes along with it is, how do I make sure that you are fully incentivized during my whole period that you will actually perform?
Well,
because you could potentially see after 2 years that it doesn't quite work out, and because you know there's a VP option there, you may not give it the focus because you have other assets.
Well, I think we will be very much aligned with the investor to the extent that we will invest equity alongside the investor, and I think that shows true alignment of interest, more than key money, more than guarantees.
All I needed to hear.
Would you want some sort of promote on exit then?
We will not put a promote on exit. We would want a minimum term which would be realistic. I'm not talking about the entire term of the contract, but we will invest equity alongside the investor.
Perfect.
Guy, what's the cost to develop per key?
The cost that we assumed here per key is 185,000 euros a key. It obviously very much depends on the market. In a market like London, it could be more. In a market like Spain, it could be less. But it's for a very high quality upper upscale product. And given that we have substantial public areas where we create a lot of the energy and activity, we spend a lot on the public areas, and we become a true destination and attraction for the locals, even more so compared to the guests.
Okay, and on that point then, because the RevPAR that you're giving us is high, 187,
Yes.
in this context. What's the revenue split, food and beverage, rooms?
Well,
What are you doing ballpark in Barcelona if that's your model?
Well, the model that we use here, our food and beverage revenue is approximately 50% of our rooms revenue.
Okay. And converting at
In terms of departmental profit,
F&B?
at departmental level, we would generate 30% departmental profit
On the F&B and on the rooms?
on the F&B. On the rooms, it will be higher. All in all, our GOP on this asset is 46%.
Okay. Thank you.
And sorry, I may have missed, in terms of the terms you're offering on the management agreement, fee-wise, what were those?
Well, we would offer, given that we also have an equity contribution, we would probably offer below market rates. I believe what we use in this model is 2.5% of base and 7 or 7.5% of adjusted GOP, which is GOP less base fee. But this is only for a prime location in Barcelona.
Yeah.
It's not anywhere. This is the lowest we would go.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Guy, for that. If you have turned to your seat, I think we'll open it up now. So we'll open it up now to the floor. So if anyone's got any questions, either for any specific operators or they want all the operators to address, please do chime up now. Anyone? Must be some questions there. Yes?
The size of the open seems to be pretty small for such a thing to our brand. So my question is, does each hotel has to have a separate entry and separate lobby? And if yes, what is the extra cost of doing dual branded versus just building Holiday Inn as a single brand?
Yes, I agree with you. For this particular example, it is actually a bit on the small size to do a dual branded, but we really like the dual brand because both brands are complementary. So ideally speaking, we would love to have something bigger, but here the space was not available. And yes, they have to have separate entrance and lobby, which is slightly more costly than on the front of house, but you will recuperate some of that on back of house, where you can make savings in terms of technical areas, engineering, and so on. I don't exactly know the additional cost that would give. We could figure that out, but I cannot specifically answer that question.
Thank you.
Hope that answers part of it.
Any other questions from the floor? Yes, over there, side.
And what your pre-opening and OS&E and typical budgets are?
For all of us?
Yeah.
We typically start, depending on the market, our pre-opening process 12 to 9 months ahead, and this whole process is in joint discussions between owner and operator. And for such a project, taking into account that we are talking Western Europe locations, we are looking into $500,000 kind of a budget. How it's allocated and when we start, this is in close cooperation with the owner.
So on IHG part, I think we should really highlight it's not only pre-opening service, it's also technical service. So we really start to work together with the developer very early on in the process, together with our team of architects and engineers, to really make sure the project is optimized in terms of space planning and layout and design and cost. So that's one thing. And then similar to for Cars and Residor, the pre-opening team comes in pretty early in the process. Typically, if it's a management contract, that can start like 12 months before. Making sure we position the hotel correctly in the market, do all the pre-sales and marketing activities. For this example, we assumed pre-opening cost of 1,500 per key, which is sort of the average.
For Mining Hotel, we have the same. The technical support is there from the beginning to help with planning and construction, to ensure that the product is right, but also the cost of construction stays down, helping the partner. A year in advance is when management starts, sales and marketing starts, anything from operational team is done 3 months in advance. So very limited, lean and mean, I will always call it. And that's mainly done because of very much ahead of central services. So all the back of house, the sales, the marketing, the bookings are done well in advance, but already the service center is taking care of all that. Cost-wise, 300, 400,000, depending on the size.
For us, pre-opening starts again between 6 to 12 months before opening. It depends on the complexity of the project and the food and beverage component, which should be treated a bit differently. For this project, pre-opening would probably be budgeted at about 450,000 euros. And all other fees will simply be 10% below anything they said.
Philip, can I just ask something on top of that? If you're doing a tripartite relationship, are we going to have to pay pre-opening fees to the tenant as well?
Good question. Bear with me, I'm only 3 weeks in the
I
company.
know, that's why I'm asking you a difficult one.
No, there is I think there is a pre-opening fee. There will be a technical service fee for IHG. Actually, the pre-opening fee is also an allowance for all the costs, like employing the staff early on and so on. So, yeah.
Would this not be the tenant paying?
No, that's the tenant paying for, but what I said in a management contract, that's typically when you hire the staff and the GM early on and so on.
Any more questions from the floor? Any comments, observations? Views on? Judges, any more questions do you have for any of our...
No more questions. I think it may look a bit contrived that we've ended up with 4 different structures, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, we gave them pretty
quite
free rein
remarkable,
to do what they wanted. Last year, actually, we actually deliberately designed this session to ask each operator to propose a different operating model, specifically to look at difference between operating models rather than differences between brands. And actually this year we decided not to be so rigid and gave them flexibility, but it is interesting that they've all come up with a pretty much completely different proposal. So it's refreshing to see there's a lot of choice out there in the market.
Yeah, I think you've all done a great job, and I was fairly certain before we started that I knew which way I was leaning, and now I'm frankly very confused.
Thrown off.
Doesn't take much.
But it's an interesting one, right? Because it very much depends also kind of the kind of capital that you're looking at. Because I look at different deals with different cost of capitals, and the risk profile of the deals presented today is very different. And it's quite a wide range. So it's not so easy to really make a decision between the 4 projects, because
they're all appealing to a different source of capital.
It depends a little bit on your appetite and capacity to take risk.
They're all very diplomatic.
Yes. Well, I'm afraid, judges, I'm going to force you to come down to a choice. So perhaps if you can each in turn, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to settle for one or the other. And I appreciate that it may be a difficult decision, but
I can take a shot. So some feedback. I think the Radisson, I really like the project, and I think it makes sense. I do have some concerns that a 135 room for full service Radisson is the best use of this relatively small building. Of course, it depends on the market and depends on the rate that you can generate. But that would be my concern a little bit. The mining one is it's slightly too dry. You make such a high rental coverage, and it feels all very protected. But it's a fixed income, which for a particular capital may work very well. But for me, it's a little bit too dry. The IEG one was the one that on paper was my favorite one. I really liked the dual concept. Again, I do think it's a small asset, and for 2 different brands, it's also a little bit too small. I don't really like The Hague as a market so much, but yeah,
that wasn't prescribed.
I won't hold that again.
I had to choose a hypothetical market, and the extended stay is very suitable to The Hague. So.
I agree. And then obviously the proposition of the art hotel is obviously extremely attractive. The co-investment, the flexibility at end. And I've seen the product in Amsterdam, which is truly amazing. So having something like that in Barcelona, I would invest in that every day.
So which is it?
Barcelona.
Barcelona.
Amsterdam.
Okay.
Wow.
Rob?
I'll follow Eric's format. I was really hoping to see you do a Radisson Red, I have to say. I really wanted to see that come in today and give
But
us
then
something.
you should attend Ellie's session later on today. We cannot have the same message.
That's great marketing. That's great marketing. Look, there's very compelling reasons for all of you. I love Eric's proposition because there's so much institutional money in the market. There's not enough product. You're bringing an alternative covenant to the table. The rent coverage is amazing. You know, the institutions would just lap that up. So that's falling off a log work for me. Well, I mean, I really like the dual brand approach. I agree with Eric. It's a little bit small, but you've mitigated risk. You'll smooth income flow. The Staybridge is going to be busy. You're going to complement the IHG F&B facilities. I think it's a really well-considered proposition. There's great upside potential, and you've mitigated risk. And my sort of commercial head is with you. And then you bloody put Barcelona in the mix. And that's what's got me, because really good strategy telling us the city, because now you've said there's that emotional attachment, and my heart is with you. But I don't sell with my heart, I sell with my head, so I'm going with IHG.
Okay.
Ben.
Yeah, thanks very much, everybody. What we've got here is 4 very distinct propositions, which is great, I think, reflective of where the market is today if you're looking for an investment. So I think with Carlton, we've got a very solid proposition. I think it's all doable, that. With Wilhelmine, I think I like the dual proposition, the creativity associated with elements of the structure. Eric, I think I like your model. I think there's definitely pent-up demand there with the world of schooling, academia, etc. There isn't a product which is really targeting those guys, although you're probably pushing your performance quite strongly there. That's real tough targets. And then I think with the Art Hotel, there's a real good partnership there. You know, a company there that's going to put in a good deal of skin in the game to try and make this whole proposition really a partnership. So my heart would go one way, my head would go the other way, but I guess from my perspective, I would go with the IHG dual proposition. Yeah, so well done. Thank you. Yeah.
Just to finish up from my perspective, the mining concept I do like, but I found that for the city, whereas as an owner I would consider this to be a fairly, comfortable with the trading that can be performed, I felt that I wasn't getting enough share of the upside. So I appreciate that there is capital that likes that security of income, but personally I'd like to see more share in that upside over a longer term. The IHG dual brand concept, I think my concerns on that is it's complicated to set up. I'm still not 100% convinced, and perhaps I could be convinced with more time, that the tenant would actually do this deal, and obviously we're not hearing from the tenant here in this prospect, so we're sort of taking it as read that a tenant would work on this structure that's been proposed. But right here today I'm not convinced that will work, and it will be complicated to set up. I think outside the lease structure, in terms of the dual brand on a sort of managed concept, I have concerns about the sort of the incentives of the employees to shift business between the 2 hotels and whether that really works. So I think there are some concerns I have around that model, but I do like the idea generally of having a dual branded hotel where they're complementary brands and the economies of scale that brings. The Carlton Residor, I did like. I share Rob's view. I'd have liked to have seen a Radisson Red perhaps here. We did tweak the scenario to make it sort of suit that sort of lifestyle brand. The city we proposed and the rates, would have allowed for that lifestyle brand. So we were hoping that we might get more presentations in that respect. But I like the franchise swap and the freedom that gives, and the liquidity that provides for an owner in terms of being able to swap and sell to a different potential buyer. And Art Hotel, I do like the Art Hotel concept. You're obviously getting higher rates than the other panelists. There is an associated cost with that, so there's potentially more upfront risk for the owner in terms of the extra build cost, whether or not that can actually then really be achieved in terms of the revenues. But it's a straightforward structure, a management agreement with sensible terms, and a freedom to sell VP, which I'm afraid clinches it for me. So I would go with the Art Hotel.
Thank you.
So with that, I'd just like to say thank you all very much for coming today. Thank you very much to our operators for bravely coming up here. It's difficult for them to present their whole operating structure in just 5 minutes. and be grilled by us. So thank you very much for all turning up, and thank you to my judges for coming and providing their insight and comments on this. And enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.